What if everything you think you understand about motion is only true at the surface, but completely wrong at the deepest level? Look around you. A car passes by. A bird cuts across the sky. A ball arcs through the air before falling back to the ground. Every moment of your daily life is filled with motion, and it all feels completely obvious. Something moves from one place to another. It covers distance. It takes time. This is the definition you've trusted your entire life. Motion is simply a change in position over time. It feels so natural that questioning it almost seems unnecessary, but that confidence is exactly the problem, because this understanding of motion is not a universal truth. It's a local approximation, a simplified model shaped by human experience. It works beautifully at the scale we live in, but begins to break the moment we step outside it. Think about it. Everything you've ever directly experienced happens at relatively slow speeds. Cars, planes, even rockets, they all move at velocities that are tiny compared to the ultimate speed limit of the universe. And so your brain builds a model of reality based on those conditions. Stable time, fixed distances, predictable motion, but the universe is not obligated to behave in a way that matches human intuition, and it doesn't. The deeper we look, the more cracks begin to appear in this seemingly solid understanding. For example, when you say something is moving, what are you actually measuring it against? A car moves relative to the road. A plane moves relative to the ground, but the ground itself is moving. Because Earth is rotating, and Earth is orbiting the sun, and the sun is moving through the galaxy, and the galaxy itself is moving through the universe. So what is truly at rest? The answer is unsettling, nothing. There is no absolute stillness, no universal frame of reference. Every motion you observe is relative to something else. Already, this challenges the idea that motion is simple, but it gets stranger, because even though everything is moving relative to everything else, your experience of reality still feels stable. Time ticks forward at a steady rate. Distances seem fixed and reliable. The world appears consistent. This illusion of stability is so convincing that we mistake it for fundamental truth. But it's not. It's just what reality looks like under very specific conditions. Conditions that are incredibly limited compared to the full range of what the universe allows. And when we begin to push beyond those conditions, everything starts to change. The rules begin to bend. Time begins to stretch. Space begins to warp. And motion, something that once felt obvious, starts to dissolve into something far more mysterious. This is the moment where physics stops being intuitive and starts becoming profound. Because the deeper question isn't just how things move. It's this: what does it actually mean to move at all? To understand motion, we first have to accept something deeply counterintuitive. Motion is not absolute. It never has been. When you say something is moving, you are always, whether you realize it or not, comparing it to something else. A train moves relative to the tracks. A person walks relative to the ground. But from inside the train, the situation looks completely different. To a passenger sitting still, it's not the train that's moving. It's the outside world that appears to slide past the window. Both perspectives are equally valid. Neither is more correct than the other. This idea is called relativity, and it fundamentally reshapes how we think about reality. There is no universal frame that defines true motion, only relationships between observers. At first, this might seem like a philosophical detail, but it has real, measurable consequences, because if motion depends on perspective, then measurements of reality might depend on perspective too. And they do. Imagine two observers, one standing still and one moving at a high speed. They both measure the same event, but they don't necessarily agree on what they see. At everyday speeds, these differences are so tiny that they're impossible to notice. Time appears to flow the same for everyone. Distances appear identical. Reality feels shared. But this agreement is fragile because as speed increases, the differences between observers begin to grow. Slowly at first, then dramatically. Eventually, they become impossible to ignore. This is where classical intuition breaks down because the universe does something unexpected. It protects one specific quantity above all else, the speed of light. No matter how fast you are moving, no matter what direction you're going, no matter who is measuring, the speed of light is always the same, always. This single fact creates a paradox because in normal life, speeds add together. If you're moving forward and throw something ahead, it moves faster relative to someone standing still. But light refuses to follow this rule. And if light's speed cannot change, then something else must, something fundamental, something we thought was absolute. That something is space and time. If the speed of light is constant for everyone, then reality must adjust itself to make that possible, and it does, by reshaping space and time themselves. This is the core insight of special relativity. Time is not universal. It does not flow at the same rate for everyone. Instead, it depends on motion. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you relative to someone else. This effect is called time dilation. At low speeds, it's tiny, so small that we never notice it. But as speed increases, the effect becomes dramatic. At 90th the speed of light, time noticeably slows. At 99e, it slows even more. And as you approach the speed of light, time begins to nearly stop. This is not an illusion. It has been experimentally verified. Clocks moving at high speeds literally tick slower. Particles traveling near light speed decay more slowly than expected. Time itself stretches, but that's only half the story. Because space changes too. As objects move faster, distances in the direction of motion begin to shrink. This is called length contraction. To an outside observer, a fast-moving object appears compressed, shortened, distorted, and just like time dilation, this effect becomes extreme near the speed of light. So now we have a strange situation. Time slows down, space contracts, reality bends, all to preserve one constant, the speed of light. This leads to a powerful realization. Space and time are not separate. They are part of a single structure, space-time. And motion is not just movement through space, it is movement through space-time. The faster you move through space, the less you move through time. And at the ultimate limit, everything changes. Now imagine pushing this to the extreme. Imagine reaching the speed of light, not approaching it, not getting close, but actually becoming light. At this point, the rules we've been discussing don't just bend, they collapse. Because according to relativity, at the speed of light, time stops completely. No ticking, no duration, no before or after. And if time stops, then motion, as we understand it, becomes impossible. Because motion requires time. It requires a sequence of events, a progression from one moment to the next. But without time, there is no progression. Now consider a photon, a particle of light. From our perspective, it leaves the sun and travels to Earth in about 8 minutes. We see a journey, a path through space, a duration in time, but at light speed, time does not pass. So from the photon's limit perspective, those 8 minutes do not exist. The moment it is emitted is the same moment it arrives instantly. No waiting, no traveling, no experience of motion. This is one of the most mind-bending consequences of modern physics, because it suggests that what we perceive as a journey may not exist in the way we think it does. Time isn't the only thing that vanishes at light speed. Distance disappears too. As objects move faster, distances contract, and at the speed of light, that contraction becomes total. The space between 2 points collapses to zero. From our perspective, the Sun and Earth are separated by 150 million kilometers, a vast distance. But from the limit defined by light speed, that distance does not exist. There is no gap, no separation. The photon does not cross space because there is no space to cross. Instead of a journey, what exists is something radically different. A direct connection, a link between two events in space-time, emission and absorption. Not a path, but a relationship. This challenges everything we think we know about motion, because motion assumes distance and distance assumes space, but at the deepest level, Even space is not fundamental in the way we imagined. So what does all of this mean? It means that motion, the idea we started with, is not a fundamental feature of reality. It is a description, a perspective-dependent interpretation of deeper processes. From our human viewpoint, motion is real, objects move, light travels, time passes, but this is just one layer of reality. At deeper levels, the universe is not built from things moving through space over time. It is built from relationships within space-time, events connected to other events, structures, not paths, geometry, not motion. Light reveals this truth more clearly than anything else because it exists at the boundary where our familiar concepts break down. It shows us that time can stop, space can vanish, and motion can lose its meaning entirely. We live in a world that feels stable. Time flows steadily. Space appears fixed. Motion feels simple and obvious, but this is only a surface-level experience. Beneath it lies a reality that is far stranger. A reality where time stretches and collapses, where space bends and disappears, where motion is not what it seems. Light exists at the edge of this reality. It carries information across the universe. It allows us to see, to understand, to exist, and yet, it operates under rules that defy everything we instinctively believe. It does not experience time. It does not experience distance. It does not travel in the way we imagine. And through it, we catch a glimpse of something deeper. The universe is not built for human intuition. It is built on principles that are elegant, consistent, and profoundly strange. So the next time you see light, whether from the sun, a distant star, or a simple bulb, remember, you are not just seeing illumination, you are witnessing a phenomenon that challenges the very meaning of motion. A reminder that reality is not what it appears, that the universe is deeper than we can easily grasp, and that understanding even a small part of it changes everything. So now we arrive at the edge of understanding, not the edge of knowledge, but the edge of intuition itself. Because everything we've explored leads to a single unavoidable conclusion. What you experience as reality is not reality as it truly is. It is a filtered version, a simplified interface, a survival-friendly illusion built from slow speeds, small distances, and limited perception. And within that illusion, motion feels obvious. Objects move, time flows, distance exists. But when we push beyond that comfortable scale, when we approach the fundamental limits of the universe, those certainties begin to fracture. Then they begin to dissolve, and finally, they disappear completely. Because at the deepest level, the universe is not made of things moving through space over time. It is made of relationships, connections, a structure where space and time are not separate, but fused into something more fundamental, something we barely understand. And light exists exactly at that boundary. It is not just something that illuminates the universe. It is something that reveals it, because light doesn't behave like anything else. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't speed up. It doesn't rest. It doesn't experience time, and it does not experience distance. From your perspective, light travels from the universe's deeper structure. There is no journey at all, only a connection between two events. Think about that. The sunlight that touches your face right now, what you perceive as an 8-minute journey across space, is at the deepest level not a journey. It is a link, a direct relationship between the sun and you. No waiting, no traveling, no passage of time, just a connection embedded in space-time itself. And if that's true, then motion, this thing we've trusted our entire lives, becomes something radically different. Not fundamental, not absolute, but emergent. A kind of shadow cast by deeper laws, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of something far more complex. Because motion requires time, it requires change, it requires sequence, but at the boundary of light speed, there is no sequence, there is no change, there is no before and after. There is only structure. This is the final break from intuition, because your brain is built to understand sequences, to understand cause and effect, to understand things happening over time. But the universe, at its core, may not work that way at all. It may not be a story unfolding. It may be something closer to a complete interconnected whole, where past, present, and future are not separate moments, but different perspectives on the same underlying reality. And light, silent, constant, ever-present, cuts straight through that illusion, revealing a universe that does not care about how things appear to us. A universe that is not designed to be intuitive, only to be true. So the next time you see light, pause. because you are not just looking at something moving through space. You are witnessing something that does not experience time, something that does not experience distance, something that exists at the limit, where reality itself changes form. That beam of light, to you it traveled, to the universe it simply is. And if that's true, then what else about reality is just a story your mind is telling? What else feels obvious but isn't real at all? What if motion is not fundamental? What if time is not fundamental? What if even space is not fundamental? This is the quiet, unsettling truth physics has uncovered. The deeper you go, the less the universe resembles the world you think you know, and yet everything still works, you still see, you still move, you still exist inside a reality that is far stranger than it appears. So maybe the real question isn't, how does light move? Maybe the real question is, why do we think anything moves at all? Because once you see this, you can't unsee it, and the universe will never look the same again.